Thank you so much. Take care,
Thanks very
everyone.
much, man. Always a pleasure. We are going to get ready to bring up our next speakers as we move forward. So looking forward to the next session. So engagement is the currency of email marketing. We have Paul Schreiner, who is the co-founder and chief product evangelist for Audience Point, will be joining us, and Paul Christmann, who is the chief software architect at Rasa. So just give us a moment to switch over our speakers, and we will begin the next session. If you need a 30-second break, now is a great time to do that. So thanks for sticking around, and just some housekeeping things. All these sessions are being recorded. They will be made available later on, and we will be sending out links on where you can access and view those after the sessions. So just hang out for a moment as we get our speakers set up, and we'll be right back. Okay, Paul and Paul, can you hear me?
Yes, there we
You
go.
are.
There we go.
Excellent. We're just waiting on the other Paul.
He's there. Oh, video.
Please feel free to turn your video on. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so we're doing one of those today. Okay.
Yeah, welcome.
I can
you
adjust.
should have the ability to share if you're sharing anything.
Yep.
Otherwise, I'm going to drop off and let you gentlemen have a conversation. So
Cool.
Thanks very much for joining us
Thank
today,
you.
and turning it over to you now.
Cool. All right. I think we're now live. Look at that. I love seeing people I know. Great to be here. Paul Schreiner with my co-host, I guess. The better Paul is what we like to call him.
The other Paul we'll stick with.
Anyway, great to have everyone today. I mean, I would say, if there's one thing about Paul and I, we're both sort of nerds, I think is fair to say. And so, part of, I think, as we were sort of preparing this, there's a lot of nerding that's going to go on. And so, but I think for the benefit. So we're going to talk about sort of engagement, and again, specifically as it pertains to email marketing, right? How does that fit? Where does it fit? All of those pieces. And I feel like there's, engagement's one of those topics that we always talk about, but there's a reason we always talk about it. And I hope we have some new insights.
Now, I want to at least offer a little caveat on my background. As I've talked with Paul and gotten to know Paul over the last many, many months, I feel I have a slightly different perspective. Our company, Rasa, is very much in the business of newsletters via email. In some sense, we're all always marketing. But what I've really learned is how we view engagement, how we think about it, what our goals are often a little bit different than what I consider traditional marketing. So some of these things I'm going to chime in with points that are a little different from our perspective, and I hope they're valuable.
Well, and I think that's part of the story here, Paul, is again, it's when we look at an engagement, we say, here's our, add water, stir approach. I feel like that's and I know so many of our marketers are just short on time, short on budget, short on everything. So the easiest thing they can do is just pour the water in and hopefully it turns out. But that's why we have these types of events. So let's dig in. And so kind of the question that Paul and I started with was, how do we change the way that we look at engagement to drive better outcomes, right? And so from there, there's a whole bunch of questions that come up, right? So if engagement is the currency of email marketing, we start there and we say engagement has value, not just value like, it helps inform my program, but thinking about it from the perspective of almost like a money, yeah, it has immediate value. And I'll tackle some of these. So the first thing is like it's around sort of funnel clarification, right? So when you've got a whole bunch of engagement coming through, you can immediately see where people are sort of falling out of the funnel, right? And that allows you to sort of address those things. So if we think about engagement from the perspective of this is how subscribers are giving us feedback, right? They're saying, I like this, I click, I open, I engage. I don't like this, I don't click, I don't open, I don't engage. And I know that sounds super basic, but I think sometimes that gets lost a little bit when we're running towards, I've got 4 deployments this week that have to go out. I can't think about what the results were. I'm on auto mode. So we've got a couple other things in terms of immediate value. IP warming, when you're warming new IPs, engagement helps a ton with that. You send your most engaged subscribers first. Makes a difference. Priming the pump for deployments. One of the things that we found is when you send your most engaged subscribers first, it kind of clears the way for the less engaged subscribers. And so, ordering your sends matters. As well as, engagement, you increase revenue or conversions, whatever your thing is, providing you are, again, sort of a student of the funnel. This is when I'll say, Paul.
So, Paul, it's again, from a newsletter perspective, we look a lot at the long-term value. I can look at any one of our given deployments for a given newsletter, and maybe there's immediate value from the clicker and the engagement, but what our clients are after, what we look for in engagement are these long-term value plays. We are looking to build loyalty over time. No individual email may lead to a conversion, but for our clients who are sending these out regularly to their membership, you get long-term conversions. The idea of some of our messaging would be involved, remember this brand 6 months from now when you have to make a high value purchase. So our clients aren't selling via their message, but they want to have loyal customers who will continue to remember a brand or continue to be loyal to an association. One of our key markets is retain your membership year over year. So we look at it very much for the long-term value. In particular, what I think we'll talk about through this is the shelf life of the long-term value of engagement. That's, to me, one of the key things is we're banking this engagement over time. And we're going to talk about some ways you then start using that money to help build new ideas and new alternatives.
Yeah. And then there's just the long-term safeguards against deliverability issues, right? Like when you have strong sender reputation, when you have solid everything, you're doing everything right. When the inevitable issue does crop up, you've got, reputation you can fall back on. You've got the ability to sort of suss out where are the problems coming in. And so I'm going to keep moving.
Yep.
But before we can kind of talk through sort of, engagement is the currency, because I think it's important. I think it's also just as important to start digging in a little bit to what engagement is, right? And so, Paul, you have this one too.
Yeah, I struggle, as I've been in this industry for a while. It's interesting how the words engagement, some people think it's so obvious we don't even have to talk about what it is, and it sort of boils down to the one sentence that I've sort of found in a couple of places you may have heard of at points. So it's worth stating. It's a measure of how people interact, and then a few other words that go along with it. Measurements, people, and interactions. And that's what we're after, is talking about what do those things mean. So let's roll on.
Well, I'm going to add something there real quick.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot, and I'll just throw it out there because I know there's a lot of fear and trepidation and concern around what Apple's doing with sort of the opens. That's going to be part of what we're talking about here, right? And I think that's part of why we start talking about like, what is engagement, what is interaction, and how do we enhance that? So, in terms of measurement, right? First, we got to know what we're going to measure. The idea that one size fits all is not true, right? Like, Paul, I know you guys do a lot of newsletters. And newsletters do not have the same call to action
Right.
that an e-commerce email might
We
have,
do.
right?
Our clients look the same as everybody else in this, in this meeting. We all look to click rates. We still look to open rates. Asterisks, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But click rates remain sort of an industry standard.
Right.
But what we keep finding as we talk through with our clients is, does it matter if a user clicks in your newsletter? If you've given them the news in their newsletter, do they need to click to register their engagement? It tells me something. If they click on ads, obviously that tells me something, but maybe they don't have to click to still be a valuable email in their inbox.
Right.
So what is measurable? I mean, what is our measurement of engagement? And it varies. There's all sorts of different ways. And I think that's one of the crux of the decisions you have to figure out is, what is the engagement that you're measuring? What is important?
Well, getting into some of the nuance there, Paul, some of my favorite conversations with you over the last year have been around, things like identifying bots, right? I
Yes.
remember having the conversation, and we'll get, not to tease out, ooh, Apple, but long before the Apple conversation ever came up, we were talking about bots and bot identification, right? And I remember you being like, well, Barracuda's been doing this for years. Why do we even care, right? But there, within those metrics, there are things that you can look at and go, no, that's not an open. That's not a click. You know what I mean?
Yep. And as I went through, as we've talked with it, 1, 2, 3, 4, I can't count the bullets. We should have numbered. Glance, skim, read, or the open to click. To me, that for our clients, if I could reliably measure that glance, skim, read, that's the holy grail of our engagement stats. It's unfortunately the one, if anybody on this knows how to reliably measure this across clients, please take my contact information and call me later and let me know the secret, because that's what I want for our clients. That's their measure of engagement.
Right.
But we're often, as many of us do, we're finding surrogates for things that are important. Let's find the best surrogate we can find in the data we do have.
Well, I'll touch that last one there, omnichannel, right? So many of our customers, they're sort of bound to this concept of last click attribution, right? Where it's like, well, we had a click and we had a conversion, therefore we did an email team. And what's being missed, I know this is, again, many folks are like, well, of course, but what's being missed there is, well, I opened the email, I read it, it was interesting, and that got me into the system, which then had me being targeted with social and display pay-per-click ads. And so I was getting lots and lots of signals from lots and lots of places. And I'll tell you what I finally did is I just logged into the website and said, I'd like to buy this pair of shoes, right? And the problem is, who gets credit for that? Well, in this case, it's the website, right? If you're talking about sort of last click attribution. But when you're dealing with sort of an omnichannel approach, what you should have happen is everyone should get credit, and those channels should be talking to each other, right? Because when you have social informing email informing web, now you've got a better system working together. And that's kind of that idea of know what you measure and sort of know how they work together.
Now, the other thing I want to mention on that one before we go on is, it's also important as we talk about engagement, there's two very different perspectives on this. It's important to keep them both in mind, because we are talking right now, both Paul and Paul, about what's important to our clients and how do we measure the engagement that we care about. Hopefully, but not always, that may align with the mail ecosystem. And what does the mail ecosystem consider to be engaged? And how does that get measured? How are you tracking that? Because we all know that's going to hit our deliverability. So again, from mine, I may think glance, skim, read is critical, but if Gmail says you better be clicking on it in order for them to consider this an engaged email, it's like, well, now my metrics are out of line with my mailbox metrics. How do I make sure these are aligned? How do I make sure that I'm measuring not only what I care about, but what's also important in the ecosystem?
Right. No, I think that's good clarification. But I think the next piece is people, right? And we started to talk about that a little bit. We've got this large data pool at Audience Point, and one of the things that we're doing is sort of identifying what's sort of a bot, right? And it's really fascinating. Like I remember what first got me down this path, and Paul, you and I arrived at the same conclusion from different angles. I'm looking at just raw activity. I'm like, this subscriber, again, I de-identified, I don't know who they are, has 10,000 opens and they have 8 clicks. Something is wrong here, right? Or this subscriber has, 125 opens and 15,000 clicks. And those things don't align, right? There's something wrong. There's something that smells funny. And that's when we started applying stats to that engagement data to start saying, hey, your bots. And right now we think that about 7% of our data pool are bots, and we should talk about what a bot is as well, because when I say bot, I don't necessarily mean this is some robot clicking things, right? I mean, like, there's a firewall that pre-opens everything. Apple, I would put in the category of kind of a bot in that case. Mm-hmm. Paul, I know you arrived at it from a different angle.
It actually, from us, I digress. Anecdotally, it started because we had one user. This one user, within like a couple of seconds, generated 300 or 400 clicks. And we're like, okay, I'm pretty sure that's not real. We ended up chasing it down a little bit, and it turns out, I'm sorry, I digress, a misconfigured mail server, that Barracuda mail server, that was bouncing it through about 3 different Barracuda mail filters, each of which ran every click in this thing 3-4 times. So yeah, 3 seconds, we got 300 clicks. And that's really, several years ago, was our introduction to just how much damage Barracuda in particular, but in our world, Barracuda is now the small b, the placeholder for all of these things that can generate traffic.
Right.
And in particular, what we find, the volume of these is very, very heavily driven by recipient domains. What we loosely would call governmental organizations. We find a lot of school districts, governments, those kind of entities have heavy spam guards. So those domains drive dramatically different volumes of what we term suspect clicks. But to our last point, we also go through, it's like, can we ignore these? No, they're real. If for nothing else, for our clients who are hosting ad servers, they better beware of this with their CDN service, because it's real traffic. They are real events that are firing across the internet. They don't measure engagement, but they're real. So we continue to struggle and work through ways to properly present this data to our clients to say, here's what's happening with your emails. How do we manage and how do we find the relevancy within all of this noise?
Right. And this is where my tinfoil hat's going to come on here in a second. I've invested heavily in tinfoil, so I feel like it's fair to use. It's around the idea of, is bot traffic ignorable? And I agree with you, Paul. I don't think so, right? But I think the idea of identification, like, we have teams of people dedicated to, like, let's figure out what is going on with, looking at these big sort of full swath identification. Who's doing what? Like, okay, this, open activity is not likely to be reliable, but their clicks are, right? And I think you can't throw it all away, but I think the idea of leaning into it and saying, we need to understand this better. Yes, 100%.
Even to the point when we talk about the websites, I've gone through a couple of times, it's like, when you click off to a website, you've got competing interests. So it's like, oh, I want to be able to present real content, because if there is some spam detection service, they're evaluating whether your clicks in your email lead to real sites or not. But if I'm expecting a user to take action, I don't want my user actions downstream to be spoiled by these bot clicks. If you've got a survey link in an email, I don't want my survey results to be suddenly skewed dramatically by these clicks. But there's ways you can detect them to try to handle them.
Well, it's so nefarious too, right? Because you're like, you open your email, you're like, I've got a 70% open rate. This is amazing. Well, ours is 7%. When I've shared this sort of with other folks, I hear more like 50%.
Yeah, we can easily see that in certain newsletters based on domains. The other one I want to mention about this, it's a little related to bot, but we also deal with what we call the missing opens. You get a click without an open. How's that even possible? Well, there's any number of ways mail clients aren't going to load the image. We all know all those things. What does it do to our reporting? We've had our clients say, how can I possibly have clicks higher than opens? All of these things, again, everybody here I'm sure is aware of them, but it's a matter of understanding what all this data is so we can present it accurately and just both from a reporting perspective and from an action perspective.
Yeah. All right, let's keep moving.
Yes.
So, and that's where we started to talk about what is interacting, right? And it harkens back a little bit what we were talking about before. We've got sort of three, we sat in, there's three real main areas of email that we're talking about, right? There's the marketing or broadcast sends, right? Where you're maybe sending out an offer and you've got all this great personalization in place. You're using send time optimization. You're doing the subject line testing. You've got multivariate testing going on. It's amazing. It's complicated, but there's that category, right? We also have sort of a newsletter, which is relationship marketing, retention. And in that case, we're not actually caring a lot about the click as much, right?
Not about the clicks. A lot of the things you talk about are less relevant. Send time is often driven by our client, not by the recipient. They say, oh, I've got my latest news. I want my news at 10 a.m. It's driven the other way for a lot of these things. So
right. Well, then the last piece is just transactional emails, right? Like things like password resets and cart abandonments. And there's so many great transactional campaigns. What we found with STO is you cannot rely on transactional data to predict outcomes, right? And that's the whole concept for us. Send time optimization is based upon this idea that like, hey, if we can identify the actual signals and cut out everything else, and we can then predict an outcome. Yeah, that's doable. But when you have all this extra traffic in there, it doesn't. It gets in the way. But to your point earlier, Paul, interaction is going to be different for each type of email, what your goals are, all of that stuff. So thinking through what is your goal for interaction. Do you want to add anything else to this slide or next?
No, go on.
Cool. I love that. And so this one, when we were talking, Paul, in our planning, like we were both like, okay, this is a shot, right? How do you trust your email, right? When we have all of this bot activity and I'm not going to say it's true, but I'm not going to say it's not true either. Like when you're being pitched an email service provider, and they say, we can get you higher open rates, higher click rates than any of our competitors. Don't trust that, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, deliverability is going to have an impact, right? So like a good sender reputation, you've got solid IPs, you're sharing IPs, or maybe you're not sharing IPs, but like you're going to have sort of open rates, click rates, engagement rates that are going to be pretty universal across everything, providing, again, that deliverability is sort of running at its height. So then the question is, why would one ESP be driving higher engagement than another? And I think this is where, and again, I don't know that I'm necessarily trying to throw anyone under the bus other than Paul Christmann from Rasa.io. But I think the idea that we as marketers have to start questioning things, right? Like, and I think never before has that been true as much as now when you throw Apple into the mix. When Apple is producing a whole bunch of extra opens, when we have a whole bunch of extra clicks coming in, when we have opens coming in from everywhere, right? Do I trust my open rates? Do I trust my click rates? Do I trust read time? Do I trust send to open timings or send to click timings or open to click timings, right? Any and all of those things, all of a sudden, we have to be diligent about protecting against it.
Mm-hmm.
Tinfoil hat taking off now.
No, put it back on. Keep it back on.
So let's, and this is getting back to kind of what we were talking about from the beginning. Email is relational, and this is what I love about it. This is what got me into it in the first place. Unlike any other channel, you have been invited into their inbox, right? It is like being invited into someone's home, right? And if you are a good guest, like I think about the times we've been invited into people's houses, like we bring a nice bottle of wine, we dress up, like all my kids are perfect looking, they took showers, holy smokes, right? We might be invited back, right? Now you throw the opposite of that, like, you know, your kids are running around, they break stuff. I remember, and this is maybe not the right place to share this. When I was 9, we were visiting people and I was that kid, right? And I got out the guy's golf clubs and I hit a golf ball and broke their window. And you know, we were not invited back, right? Because we weren't good guests. And so if we think about our programs, you know, and we want to tailor everything to sort of that invitation, that idea that we're going to be good guests, that paves the way for everything else, right? So what is it people want? How do they want it, right?
Even-
all of those pieces.
Even to a point where things we've had conversations with, one of the usual metrics that when we started in our newsletter business was measuring the size of your mailing list. Wow,
Right.
There's
Right.
some value in there, but have I just barged in with a lot of Paul Schreiner 9-year-olds into some people's houses who don't want us there? Have I measured success by injecting myself where I do not belong? So I think it's on all of us in our roles here to be good stewards of this position as an invited guest. Great, sending more people is good, but it's good because we're bringing more people what they want,
Right.
not because bigger numbers are better.
And the contrast to that, Paul, is we're being evaluated off of bigger numbers, right? There's attaboys there, right? Like,
Yep.
hey, I grew our mailing list by 15% over the last year. Aren't I great? Absolutely. Promotion, raise, front of the line. Paul Christmann, you're the best. And the rest of us are like, I'm not getting promoted because I'm following best practices.
Just don't look at my deliverability rate as impacted by that. But it's important on all of us to try to balance this. And even it starts with step 1, which is recognizing this conflict of interest that we're all faced with. We can't make a business by shrinking mailing lists. We know that.
Right.
So but just to recognize the conflict and then figure out how we address and live that way.
Well, and I think that's kind of where we're thinking, right? So the idea of if engagement is currency, and we started by talking about here's the sort of short-term and long-term benefits. How do we start to spend that, right? So we want to start by sort of what banking looks like, right? We want to drive up as much engagement as possible. And I want you to think about this like it's small ball, right? Like baseball small ball. Instead of swinging for the fences every time with a home run, you're looking for singles and doubles, right? So better segmentation, finding the people that, let's start with frequency, because I like that one, like it a lot. You know, right? There are people, and we see patterns, right? There are people that will open everything. You send them an email at 3:00 in the morning, it will wake them up out of bed. They will find their phone or their computer. They're like, I feel like I might have gotten an email right now. Let me just check. Oh, there it is. Open, right? And those people, no matter how many times you send them an email, they will continue to open. They will continue to click because they're that loyal. And for those people, send them a lot of email. They want it. They're showing you with their signals that they're interested. Now, if you stop seeing those signals, back off, right? But that engagement, that sort of banking of the engagement benefits you in the long run.
Let me piggyback on the newsletter side. We've had a couple of clients who adopted a policy of, so our usual newsletters for our bigger association type clients is they're going to send them every day. Every day they've got a collection of content and articles they're sending out. So every day, 5 business days a week they're sending. They found when they're getting unsubscribes that were higher than they wanted, they offered a second weekly digest. Give me a weekly, and they dropped that on the unsubscribe page as a bump. And guess what? People started signing up for the weekly. They end up keeping subscribers, and they're driving better engagement for the weekly people because that's what they want to read. That's the frequency. So we've been pushing a little more user-selected frequency. Don't risk the unsubscribes if these people have the option of choosing a less frequent delivery that meets their schedule.
So thank you. And let's add a couple more things on there, right? Better segmentation. Are you segmenting to the right people? Are you building a very are you building very targeted segments? Because now you can cater your content to those segments as well, right? More relevancy, more open rate, more click rate, more engagement. Subject line optimization. And Paul, I know you want to growl about this.
I'm going to growl about it. I could put my nerd hat on and we can go into math. Anybody in this call who's thinking about A/B testing, about subject lines or really about anything, make sure you first run an AA test, which is segment your audience, run exactly the same email campaign twice in 2 different ways, see what kind of difference you get. You're going to find you will likely find statistically significant differences in an AA test. Make sure you understand that before you start blindly following AB test results.
Well, and I think that's a fair statement. I mean, I'll tell you the number of times we've had folks who are send time optimization A/B testing, right? They cut the list in half, and
Yep.
one goes out at their standard business as usual time, and one gets spread out across, forever. And we look at it and we're like, it's weird. I didn't get the results that I want. And then when we do that AA test, we're like, it's still all over the place. What's going on? And well, and part of it is like, how are you cutting your list in half, right? Is it just select top 50% from where? Well, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get your first 50%. It's not going to be randomized. So there's a whole bunch that needs to be factored into your consideration to have a truly sort of random split.
Yep.
But I'd be remiss not to say send time optimization here. It does not change the world, but it's small ball, right? Every little piece helps. Newsletters. I think that relationship marketing, I mean, that's the whole basis of email. So you get regular touches. In a previous life, I was working with a nonprofit, and we weren't allowed to sort of make any asks until we had 7 regular touches. Regular touches matter. And maybe you don't have the time to add more email. Maybe you're like, dang it, Paul. You can pick which Paul you want. I don't have more time to handle this. Cool, I get it. But the idea of, there are services like Rasa, and there's other services out there that do sort of this automated, we're going to help you figure out what your subscribers are going to want, so they're getting relevant content on a regular basis. Marketing schedule, I'll throw a second at that one real quick here. And that sort of dovetails very nicely into what we were just talking about around sort of 7 touches for one ask. If you send an ask out, if you send a call to action on every single email, you then become the people that are the 20% discounts. And instead of being like, I'm delightfully surprised by the content in your email, you're like, let me just find that offer because I'm in the register cash line. Here you go. Right. So the idea of having a thoughtful, intentional schedule drives up engagement. The other thing, and I'll do this because I know we're sort of getting near the end, high value transactional campaigns, things like cart abandonment, birthdays. I mean, there's a ton of them, set them up, use them. They work. Paul, you have anything else here?
Nope.
Cool.
Let's roll through.
Keep on rolling.
Yep.
Subscribers vote with their engagement. We started this way, right? When they want more of what you're offering, they're going to open and click. If you see reductions in your open and click rate, sometimes it's something nefarious, like I'm getting blocked, but sometimes it's just like your email sucks. And do better, right? Be more relevant. All the things we just talked about. One agency we work with out of Atlanta, they have a program they built that allows them to track the different offers, types, mailing types, all of the things. And then they can say, hey, not just like, I think that a 20% offer would work here, right? They're saying, no. Like, hey, when we send 20% off, that's our highest engagement. But now they're able to say, actually, it has nothing to do with the offer. We see our most engagement on informational messages, right? So the idea of paying attention to those things, subscribers vote with their engagement. Okay. And then, poor engagement equals poor deliverability, right? Like if you don't, we had a brand come through and we were working with them, and we looked at their engagement rates, and I was like, is that really? It has a 1% open rate. Well, we know why they had a 1% open rate, and that's a good reason to not have them as a customer for us. But like their deliverability had tanked. It was absolutely horrendous. So what can we do with our engagement to improve our deliverability? Again, send your most engaged subscribers first. Build up your sender reputation. For subscribers that want more email, send them more email, right? And then reduce the number of mailings to people who don't want it, right? Take a hint. I like you, Paul, but not that much.
Aww.
And then remove the non-engagers, right? The ones that are just not engaging with you. it's been good. It's been good, but it's time to move on.
Yep. We had a good run, but it's interesting that last one, we'll come back to that last
Oh,
one,
won't we?
the non-engagers.
So then we get into the topic of spending your engagement. If you've been spending all of this time building it up, right? Building it up, how do we start to sort of take advantage of that reputation we have built up? And it's a discussion around sort of improving things. It's not, and anytime you get into sort of these types of conversations, it gets tricky, right? Because you're talking about entering into a space that is knowingly tricky, right? And so, and I just know that the number of folks that I have worked with who are like, I have to, I'm sending out a reactivation campaign once every quarter, and that's what I have to do, or that's what I'm doing. And you're sending to people who are no longer engaged. Now they're still permissioned in. Legally, you have every right to email them still. But the reason that you're not emailing them is so that your inbox still gets the emails delivered, right? So, and Paul, I'll let you talk for a second because I like how you put
Well,
this.
it's just to me, and this, as I've gotten more familiar with the marketing side, it's been interesting because from the newsletter side, this was our clear rule. Don't send unengaged users, period. That's the single biggest thing you can do to enhance your deliverability. Okay, there's lots of other things, but that's it. But the idea is you need to be able to, these people, they've changed, you've changed, everything's changed. You do want to refresh them. These are, I think we call them, these are unicorns. These are people who once were engaged. Don't you want their money that they are just waiting to spend on you now? And so that, I think, is one of the ideas here is you've bought some engagement credit. You can start using that. You can risk some of these types of mailings that you otherwise might not. But the rule at the bottom of this that Paul alluded to, that we'd all allude to, is you better tread carefully because you're now doing the things everybody would tell you not to do. And that's what you want to do because that's how you experiment. That's how you find new things. But you better have, way back in earlier slides, you better have your measurements in play. You better have all of your ducks in a row so that you can see what's happening and not let these other types of things get out of hand.
And there's a reason this is our last slide, because I know this is going to be the most controversial, right? And it's going to drive the most conversations. So I don't know, Matt, I see you're visible again.
So
I know there's probably some angry email marketers.
I wouldn't say angry. I always like the idea of when you're trying new things, go cautiously. Paul, my opinion on all things around pushing in the envelope and, do it smart if you're going to do it and be willing to pull back when you've gone too far and course correct all the time. So we have a couple questions from the audience I wanted to take just before we ran out of time here and bring up the next panel. The first one was any thoughts on send time versus view time optimization and how that, I guess, thinking about sort of the Apple stuff, opens are soon to be polluted with additional bots, if you will. You guys both talked about that. Any thoughts on the effectiveness of STO versus VTO?
Yeah, so they're different. They're apples versus oranges, right? I think SEO is still just as valid as it ever has been. However, it's going to be a lot harder to do DIY homebrew solutions, right? That's just going to be a harder thing to pull off. They're different beasts a little bit, where send time optimization is the kind of thing where you're saying, hey, here's my list, and I'm just going to target everything. Cool. Where real-time optimization or view time optimization, what that's going to do is that's going to sort of target these individual peoples, and it's quite expensive. So I think they're different beasts a bit.
Sure. Yeah. Other Paul, any thoughts on that?
I'm going to defer that one to Paul because what I know about STO is what I've learned specifically about him. I have very strong feelings that won't fit into the remaining 60 seconds about open rates, apples, and such, but I appreciate what he said. I would generally agree with his.
All right. We got one last question that just squeaked in here.
I see it.
Any thoughts on BIMI? It's not really, doesn't necessarily fit into this discussion, but any thoughts?
No, but it does at the same time, right? Because the promise of BIMI was it's going to drive engagement up, because now, you'll be able to position your own stuff ahead of time. You're a verified sender, you've got all the DMARC, DKIM set up correctly. all of those things. So yeah, it does. I think it will. I'm not sure there's enough people who bought into it yet to make it.
I've been pushing it on our product side because I think it will go somewhere. I want our clients to be on the front cutting edge of that. So if anybody wants Beamy in their newsletters, please find me. I need more product people. I need more product votes on that feature because I do think it's got the potential to make a significant difference in deliverability.
Sure.
You got my vote, Paul.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll sign you up for our newsletter. No, thank you all very, very much. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thank you both for joining us. Thank you very much for the informative content. I always love hearing about how people actually execute and the results it drives. So thank you very much for your time. And I hope you stick around for the rest of the sessions over the next 2 days.
Thanks.
Very good.
Thanks for having us.
Take care.